Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk to you about the English 202 essay assignment. So let me find it. Okay. Here it is. Okay. Okay. Hopefully you don't mind me reading some to you. I don't really like to read this much. I think you should read it, but I will read it to you so that I can kind of embellish it and explain it if it's not totally clear to you. All right, for this essay, you may choose any work of fiction or poetry we have read this semester or another selection from our textbook, which we did not read if you like, but not something from outside of our textbook. It has to be from inside of our textbook. Select one work for a close literary analysis. This essay should be your attempt to join the conversation with another critic who has examined the piece of literature before. This means you'll be examining an idea or a theme or a concept which you feel is explored in the work and is also addressed by the critic. You may use the critical essay to help support your idea about the poem or short story, or you may argue against the critic's interpretation. For example, you might say, Tom Jones, in his essay, The Sloppy Jane Austen, says that Jane Austen's love and friendship is an early work and demonstrates her lack of talent. So that signal phrase telling us that this guy, Tom Jones, wrote this essay, and this is what he says. In actuality, this is you now. You decide to disagree with him. In actuality, the piece uses humor to show the absurd role women have in their society. What the critic feels is lack of talent is actually a brilliant attempt to show the funny side of Austen's work. For example, in this line by Austen, and then you're going to prove your point by using the piece of text, the piece of literature that you chose. All right, so you'll close read and utilize the text in order to prove that point or any point you would like to make about the piece of literature you've chosen. Please choose something sort of narrow to talk about. It's like a 3-page essay or more, but don't choose too many things to talk about. Choose something focused that you can, by going through the piece of text, you can argue. All right, let's see. So for this essay, you need to have one outside source, which is a critical essay regarding the piece of literature you have chosen for this assignment. This critical essay must be from the Greenville Tech Library databases. There's also another video which shows you how to maneuver the databases. And also there's a path with this assignment that shows you how to do it as well, what to do as well. The discussion boards we've done may give you some ideas for focus. Be sure to support your discussion with ample evidence from the text. To your instructor, less is more. Aha, that's what I said before. You are writing at least 3 pages, so choose a relatively narrow topic or for discussion and develop it carefully and thoroughly. Feel free to run the thesis idea by me. All right, here are the requirements. You have to have MLA formatting. You have to submit it by the due date. You need a focused thesis idea. You have two sources, the critical essay and the work of literature. If you want to have 3, that's fine, but don't get to have too many more than that. All right, you must use proper formatting. I said that already. So you can go to the OWL website to figure out what that is, or your MLA handbook. Hopefully, by this time, we've kind of gotten used to doing MLA formatted documents. It has to have a works cited page, and it must have 2 works on it, at least, the work from our anthology and the outside criticism. All right. The essay should be your own interpretation of information, but should use the critical essay as either a point of reference, a point to argue against, or as support for your own good ideas. The essay must have in-text citations from the critic and from the work of fiction, poetry, seamlessly woven into your essay using MLA formatting. All right, here's another thing, and we're doing another assignment which will help us to practice this. It must be written in 3rd person, not 1st person. Do not use I or you in your essay. Also, when analyzing literature, use present tense. Since literature is like art, it will continue to go on after our death. So you will say, Gatsby is a man of great wealth, not Gatsby was a man of great wealth. All right. Also, you should, in your academic writing, be focusing on beyond what it is, or instead focusing on why and how a selection of literature is working. That's called critical thinking. All right. We're going to look at a couple. These are student essays from before. They're also in from other classes, they're also in assignments under the essay assignment. There's these, however, when you look at them there, they're pretty much MLA formatted. This, when I brought it over, is not MLA formatted. So we're not looking at this formatting. You have to have MLA headings. You have to have your last name, your page number, my name, your name, the date, etc. All right. So here's the title. First off, let me just look at this title. This is a person's essay about Robert Frost's Birches. For one thing, critical analysis of Robert Frost's Birches is fine titled, not very exciting as far as, you know, it just basically tells us what it is doing. Well, it doesn't tell us what it's doing. It's just telling us that it's an analysis. Also, it doesn't need to have quotation marks outside of it. The whole title should just have the quotation marks around the title of the poem. All right, so remember, this would be indented and this would be in MLA formatting, but right now I'm going to show you, or we are going to examine how this student decided to include the critic. So what I usually do is I make sure that in the introduction, there's a summary of the piece of literature. All right, let's see what he does. In Frost's poem Birches, the narrator is surrounded by a scene of snow and birches upon which the snow rests. The narrator in this poem describes the branches to be bent and imagines the branches to be bent by a boy. It's a lot of bees. The figment of imagination is given attention. This figment of imagination is given attention for some time until the narrator is subliminally affected by reality and explains that the branches are bent because of the ice storm. However, the narrator chooses to accept the idea that the branches are bent due to the boy swinging from them. The narrator recollects the days when they were able to swing from branches and wishes they could, however, the narrator is a singular and they is plural, just notice that. They could return to simpler times such as those. The narrator concludes by stating they would like to be relieved from their time on earth for some time, but to be reunited once again because experiences such as love could not be greater than on earth. The motif displayed throughout Birches is that though life is filled with impediments, the experience itself is invaluable. Now, this student, so that's the summary of the poem. It's pretty long. You don't have to summarize every single thing about it, but it's pretty well done. Also, it's in present tense. Concludes, wishes, recollects, not recollected, wished, included. This is present tense. It's what you want to be in. Sounds like it's in third person. This person doesn't say, I think that Birches is about, etc., etc. All right, so here's his thesis. Frank Lentrichia, an American literary critic and novelist, states in The Redemptive Imagination that Frost begins to probe the power of his redemptive imagination as it moves from its playful phase toward the brink of dangerous transcendence. Now, they want the page number here if there was one, as far as MLA formatting goes, but we do know who the author is. We do know that this is a literary critic, and so he has some sort of knowledge about this topic, and so that's a good way to introduce this critic. All right, and he says he begins to probe the power of his redemptive imagination as it moves from its playful phase towards the brink of dangerous transcendence. Okay. When you use the quote from the critic, then respond to it. Don't just let it speak for itself, because we can maybe guess what you mean by having it there, but also tell us what it means, what you think about it, build upon it, because let's say you agree with it. Don't just move on and just drop quotes in and then move on to some other idea. All right, so then this person who is focusing supposedly, I think, on motif is going to continue discussing that. Let's see. And then he's telling us some things about the poem, and then he gets back to Lentrichia and what he says about the poem. All right, so that's one way to do it. The one thing I don't like about this, I mean, there might be a couple things, but the one thing I don't like about this is that for his thesis, he's using the idea from the critic only. After making this statement, the author, the student, should then say that this is a valid point or something like that. like say something that's the student's idea about it, not just he's using this guy's idea as his thesis, which is fine if he wants to add to it and say what his thesis is and how it kind of matches up with the critics. All right, let's move on. I didn't put the whole essay in here. I'm just showing you some ways that students included literary critics with their essay. All right, this one's about do not go gentle into that good night. And it's not MLA formatted because that's incorrect. However, it was originally, I believe. All right, do not go gentle into that good night explains a horrifying truth of an unstoppable fate called death. That's an exciting beginning, I think. People know that one day will be their time to pass, but it is up to each human being how they will accept or deny their fate. Do not go gentle into that good night is a tough yet meaningful poem that describes what it is like to live the final days on earth. The old may wish to have done more and stay, or have led hard, dreary lives and wish to leave. It is a powerful poem that gives hope to all who wish to pass sooner. It reminds readers to cherish life and have hope for the future. Through the brilliant use of metaphors, so he's going to talk about metaphors, I think, Thomas is able to compare life and death in an unforeseen way. His use of personification, he's kind of taken on a little too much. If he wants to have his thesis statement about metaphors, personification, and paradox, he could put that all in one sentence. However, I would prefer if you chose just, this person probably thought he doesn't have enough to say. He has enough to say. There's lots of things where he could talk, look through the whole thing and figure out how he's using personification. Focus only on personification. That would be fantastic. But he didn't. All right. Lastly, his use of paradox reveals that one should pass on, but also resist dying. I'm not sure what that means, but I kind of get it. All right. Now, he starts first off by talking about metaphors, which is correct. So if he had a list in his thesis statement, which is called a closed thesis statement, meaning like let's say he had Thomas uses metaphors, what was the other thing? Personification and paradox to show whatever he was showing. Then I have to have my essay in the same order of that list. Otherwise, it will throw us off and we'll forget what the focus is. All right, so he does have it in the correct order, even though his thesis statement is 4 sentences. All right. Through the brilliant use of metaphors, Thomas is able to compare life and death in an unforeseen way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I want to get down to where he includes the critic. Okay. I'm going to just skip this part. This is used as it is said that many people see a light before they pass on. Author Jan Hockman clarifies the meaning of the light. So that's good. So this person, this critic, is he's building on this idea, or he or she is perpetuating or continuing the discussion that the student is doing. That's very good. All right. And once again, author Jane Hockman clarifies the meaning of the light when stating, no matter what the role the light played in their life, in this sense, Thomas asks us to see rage as a kind of beam of light shooting through the darkness of death, light which refuses death's pacifications or darkenings. Such a light yields a vision which exposes death in the way Thomas comprehends it, the ultimate horror. Thomas shares a second metaphor. Okay, all right, so remember, this is a long quote for one thing. You probably don't need quite so much, and I'm not sure as far as the seamlessness of using this quote. And then, like, I like the beginning, how this is a clarification, and then when he or she finishes with the quote, I would discuss this a little bit. This shows that something. Stay focused. Make sure you're not using a huge long quote that really isn't talking about exactly what you're talking about. And also, these people, both of these students, have decided to agree or use their critic to support their ideas rather than, saying that they're wrong, which is what critics do. They have conversations with each other about literature in essays, where they say one thing and another person disagrees or agrees with them. So a lot of times when you look at a critical essay, you'll be looking at that critic will also use another critical essay, even though they're to talk about what that guy said about it, but how that guy's wrong or how that guy's right. However, there's more to it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can go to the assignment and look at the sample essays, and here's the assignment itself. And if you have any questions, don't feel free to email me. Don't forget to click the email box when you do the messages, because that's how I get it the fastest. And the message, as I've said before, the messages get all jumbled up sometimes. Okay. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.